Williams is having its best season in a decade and has embarrassed one of F1's biggest teams a couple of times in the process, but it's ready to sacrifice its current position and the potential to achieve even more with all its focus already on next year. Fifth in the championship, having scored points in all but one race so far in 2025, means the Williams revival is enjoying its first big public sign of progress under the guidance of James Vowles, and really since new owner Dorilton took over in 2020. Alex Albon beat both Ferraris and a Mercedes on pure pace in the last race in Miami, has sporadically picked off a weak second Red Bull and legitimately outqualified Ferrari back in the season opener in Australia as well. On its day, this year's Williams is more than just best of the midfield, it's sniping at underperforming giants. No more so than in Miami, where Williams was within 4/10 of pole position and comfortably clear of its usual rivals. Okay, that track suited Williams perfectly, as it lacked any nasty long corners that combined steering lock with braking, the type that Williams has been caught out by for years, so this was at the very peak of what the car is capable of. Still, 2025 signing Carlos Sainz reckons the baseline car is so good, Williams could actually close the gap to the front even further this year if it developed in the right areas. Sainz says that seeing such a small gap makes him want Williams to chase the lap time as soon as it can. He's adamant that a very big step would be possible if this car was put in the wind tunnel and the team prioritised 2 or 3 areas he knows from his Ferrari days carry a lot of potential. Unfortunately, that's not the plan. Team boss James Vowles has made it very clear he is willing to sacrifice this year to get the future right, given the massive rules overhaul coming in 2026 is a great chance to leap up the pecking order and will define several seasons to come. And the drivers are behind that as much as their inherent competitive impatience allows. Albon admits he's enjoying this year a lot, and after a strong start, the temptation to focus more on 2025 than intended is there, but he says we're sticking to our guns and we want to make a big step for next year. And Sainz knows there will be no great gains this season because he's asked Vowles how much development work could be done for 2025, and the answer is simple: none. Vowles is determined not to get caught out chasing short-term gains when Williams has desperately needed patience, investment and long-term planning to permanently escape the depths it's descended to over the previous 10 years. So as Sainz says, we're going to put all the eggs in that basket. To that end, Williams appeared to have got the jump on its rivals by becoming the first team to switch off wind tunnel development of its current car to focus fully on 2026. Vowles said at April's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix that this had already happened. There's a balance most teams are trying to strike between aggressively developing for next year's all-new rules while continuing to bring improvements to this year's car early on. Even Aston Martin, which is known to have heavily committed resources to the future rule set, revealed recently that it's been running its 2025 car in its brand new wind tunnel so it can try to work out what's gone wrong with its current design. But for Williams, only developments that have already been signed off or can be done outside of a wind tunnel will find their way onto the cars this year. This decision opens the door for others who can make significant progress with upgrades that will be coming over the forthcoming races, because Williams doesn't always have a big advantage over its immediate rivals. Its main strength this year has been to consistently be 5th or 6th fastest while others fluctuate. But Vowles said neither he nor team owner Dorilton are concerned about that. They consider the final finishing position in the Constructors' Championship this year largely irrelevant, and it doesn't seem like lip service. When Vowles was asked how hard it was to convince shareholders about the potential loss of prize money this year by switching off development so soon, he joked that he would have removed this year's car from the wind tunnel himself if he had to. But he said it wasn't actually difficult at all, because Dorilton has bought in completely to the argument that Williams can't afford to replicate the short-termist attitude that for different reasons has held it back for 20 years. In fact, that goes back to the very first conversations Vowles held with the team ownership about how long it would take to become a frontrunner, what level of investment would be required, and how to determine a long-term strategy. Fifth in the championship with a 209-point deficit to leader McLaren already after just 6 races might not seem like much for a team with mighty ambitions to write home about. But Williams has more points after 6 races than it's had since 2016, when it was a semi-regular podium threat. And on Miami form, you wouldn't rule out an opportunistic Williams podium at some point this year. The last time Williams looked this good early in the season, it finished 5th in the championship, and its current tally bodes well, averaging 6.17 points per race this year compared to 6.57 in 2016. But we'll come back to its 2025 prospects later. For a team that's been in the bottom 2 in the championship in 5 of the last 7 seasons, including last year, and not finished higher than 7th in that time, it's a drastic change in fortune to leap to the top of the midfield. But progress has been more gradual than it appeared, and this season isn't desperately better than Vowles expected. Since Williams was sold by its founding family to investment company Dorilton in 2020, the team has had massive investment and undergone a lot of change in its senior leadership, driver lineup and way of working. Setting a new foundation has taken a lot of time, but it finally appears to be working under the current regime headed by Vowles and with ex-McLaren, Ferrari and Renault man Pat Fry overseeing the technical department. Re-signing the impressive Albon to a long-term deal last year, then convincing Sainz to join after his Ferrari exit, plus a major recruitment drive adding hundreds of staff for a total headcount in excess of 1,000 have been big milestones. But Vowles doesn't believe that Williams can realistically be a frontrunner again until 2027 or 2028 because it's coming from such a low base. And as Williams has struggled to make an obvious leap before this year to the outside world, the project has had a lot of convincing talk without the progress on track to back it up. Almost anything would have been an improvement on a pointless 2020 or even the 2 years prior to that, so the early Dorilton seasons were an encouraging step into respectable lower midfield territory, but hardly conclusive proof of a revival. Especially as there was a return to last place in the championship in 2022 and a disappointingly low yield last year, 9th in the standings with just 17 points, saved only by the hapless Sauber team. But Williams underperformed quite considerably in 2024. The baseline car performance was reasonable, but disguised early on due to running too heavy and early upgrades being held up. Both were consequences of a major overhaul in how Williams designed and built its car, which put it behind schedule. The situation was exacerbated by a string of big early season crashes, a mid-season driver change, then a return to managing a lot of crash damage late in the year. All of this overshadowed the fact that Williams had anywhere between the 5th and 10th fastest car at different points, and should have scored more points than it did. In that respect, 2025 is not some sudden transformation. It's what Vowles calls the carry-through of last year's progress and a lot of aspects of the new era finally coming together.
Did you know you can get 75% off a membership with us if you take out our latest special offer on Patreon? It's a great time to check out the Race Members Club, including bonus podcasts and videos, exclusive behind-the-scenes insights, the chance to ask questions for our shows, community groups where you can chat with us and like-minded fans, and you get all of our regular podcasts and YouTube videos ad-free. So if you want to become the ultimate insider, head to Patreon via the link we've posted below to claim this limited time offer.
Finishing 5th this year would be a nice symbol of progress for Williams if nothing else, although the team is setting targets based on itself rather than others, and its goal is not as simple as finishing PX in the championship. Vowles gives several examples of targets around infrastructure, technology, systems and internal key performance indicators, like how long it takes to build a front wing, how expensive that is, how much is done internally versus externally, how long design lead times are, how many development loops it can do, and how many wind tunnel hours does it take to add X amount of performance. The results on track are just an output of all of that crucial work. Improve all those areas Vowles is focusing on, and Williams will get better on track as a result. Keep improving them and make them better than everyone else, and it will climb to the very top. That's why Vowles keeps banging the drum that this is about longer term progress. But this season is still important, and Williams won't just leave its car completely how it is. There's a series of sticky plasters Vowles says Williams has to try to cover up its car's main limitation, which cannot be completely fixed this year. As we touched on earlier, the Williams cars have suffered throughout the ground effect era with entry instability into corners where brake and steering lock have to be applied together. It's something Albon noted very early in his time with the team, but he admits he has perhaps become more accepting of the issue and been driving around it. Sainz's driving style from his time at Ferrari has been caught out by the Williams car behaviour, so he's identified it as a significant thing holding Williams back from making further progress. Vowles thinks that Williams has already got that issue down from a 9 out of 10 problem at its worst a couple of years ago to a 4 out of 10 now. Going any further will take a deeper fix, and it's an aerodynamic and vehicle dynamics project for 2026 and beyond. That means Sainz and Albon need to work with what Williams has for now and what it can improve within the means it has for 2025, whereas rivals might have bigger potential to address more obvious car issues that leave them underperforming at the moment, another reason Williams' current trajectory may be tough to sustain. But Williams' progress to the front, if it ever gets back there, was never going to be completely linear. The trend will only be observed once it has happened. And of all the midfield projects with grand designs, Williams, Aston Martin, Alpine, Sauber and Audi, this has always seemed the most cohesive. All it was missing was the on-track momentum Williams finally seems to have.